research webinar session. And for today, is 4 cluster clinical and health sciences. And thank you for joining despite of your busy schedule. And I hope everyone is in good health. I'm Azliyana Azizan, the Health and Wellness Coordinator of Research Nexus UiTM, will be the moderator for today's webinar session entitled Tips in Preparing FRGS Proposals. As for today, we are fortunate to have here with us Professor Datin Dr. Hapizah Nawawi as the guest speaker, and also Associate Professor Dr. Siti Hamimah Sheikh Abdul Kadir as the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, let me briefly introduce our guest speaker, Professor Datin Dr. Hapizah Nawawi. Professor Datin Dr. Hapizah Nawawi is a professor and senior consultant in chemical pathology and metabolic medicine at the Faculty of Medicine, University Teknologi Mara UiTM, and founding director and principal fellow of the Institute of Pathology, Laboratory and Forensic Medicine, I-PPerForM. Her clinical and research interests are in the field of lipidology, dyslipidemia, including molecular basis of FH, atherosclerosis, coronary risk factors, and novel biomarkers, antioxidants, and coronary heart disease prevention. She has attracted multiple competitive national, international, and industrial research grants, about 9.2 million Malaysian ringgit, as the principal investigator over 20 years. In 2021 and 2022, she had co-authored 2 papers in the Lancet JCRQ1 with the impact factor 202.731, one of the prestigious flagship medical journals, representing Malaysia alongside many renowned researchers worldwide representing more than 60 countries across 6 continents. To date, she has published over 162 full papers in international and national journal index proceedings, including 44 in WOS, Q1 and Q2 high impact journals paper, 19 books chapters in a book, 511 abstracts in index journal and proceedings. Moving on, I would like to introduce our next panel for today, Associate Professor Dr. Siti Hamimah Sheikh Abdul Kadir. Dr. Siti Hamimah Sheikh Abdul Kadir is an Associate Professor of Biochemistry and Molecular Medicine at Faculty of Medicine and Senior Fellow at the Institute of Pathology, Laboratory and Forensic Medicine, I-PPerForM, UiTM. She received her PhD in Molecular Medicine from Imperial College London, United Kingdom. Her research interest is on understanding how cells interact with its adjacent cells, and for the past 16 years, she has been working with cardiomyocytes isolated both from human and animals. Currently, she has developed an interest on understanding the impact of endocrine disruptor contaminants, ADCs, on the development of cardiac cells using an in vivo and in vitro models. She has secured several national grants and published more than 50 articles in index journals. And she has been supervised 7 PhD students and 5 master students. Well, that was very impressive biography for both our speakers for today. So ladies and gentlemen, note that this session is recorded. Please mute your microphone throughout the session, and please type in the chat box if you have any questions, or you may welcome to ask any question directly to our speakers. Without further delay, I would like to welcome Professor Datin Dr. Hapizah Nawawi to give a talk and start this session. Okay, Prof, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Noliana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Very good morning and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh kepada semua all in the audience. Firstly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank pihak venue, pejabat TNC RNI, particularly to Prof. Noor as the pengarah venue, and also Timbalan Pengarah venue on health and wellness, AP Dr. Yusmi Ideal, for arranging this session for me and AP Dr. Hamimah with all of us in the platform today on tips in preparing FRGS proposal. And thanks to Dr. Noor Azliyana, who has been making arrangement, and a team to make this session a success today. Okay, I would like to share some of the experience that we've had both as a researcher getting FRGS grants previously, and as well as our experience in becoming internal as well as KPT external reviewers in assessing FRGS proposals. And I would like to qualify by saying that I'd like to focus on in areas of health and clinical sciences. Yeah, I think that's what we are familiar with, and probably the focus for today's talk. Now, this is briefly the outlines of my talk, looking at an overview on FRGS proposals. What is FRGS? What are the requirements and the guidelines? And briefly on what is meant by Ministry of Higher Education, research domains, research clusters, socio-economic drivers, shared prosperity vision for 2030, as well as sustainable developmental goals related to FRGS that we need to include. And also briefly on assessment process and criteria, and perhaps share some cases and examples, and also to give an overview on the internal panels, particularly in individual universities, and an internal panel within the PTJ, for example, at RMC level, and then at central in KPT, where there's also evaluation process at KPT level. Now, what is FRGS and what are the requirements and guidelines? Now, for the purpose of my discussion today, what I could do is discuss on, based on briefly on the guidelines that is currently available on 2022. The latest guideline on 2023, I am informed it's still not out yet. So what I'm going to discuss today is based on the existing guideline on 2022. However, you have to stay tuned and refer to the latest guideline when apply for the 2023 FRGS. So maknanya stay tuned and be alert on the 2023 guidelines, which should be out anytime now, from now to end of the year, for 2023 FRGS guideline, because that would be the latest. There may not be major changes, but there might be some that you have to take into account to make sure you adhere to all the guidelines and requirements that is in the latest guideline for the year. Okay. Now, there are several MOHI research grant schemes, one of which is FRGS. There's also the PRGS. FRGS is the Fundamental Research Grant Scheme. There's also the PRGS, Prototype Research Grant Scheme. Last year, we had 1.0 and 2.0. And what is meant by 1.0 is not that it appears for the first time for the year, but it is for a target of reaching up to TRL level 5 and 6, whereas PRGS 2.0 is up to pre-commercialization level. Okay, there's also the TRGS, LRGS, and MyLab, amongst others. Yeah. Now, okay, so these are the three grant schemes that I've mentioned. These are the four major, I would say, FRGS, PRGS, TRGS, and RGS. Now, FRGS is mainly for fundamental research yang menghasilkan research that produce new theories, concept, and new ideas. And basically, it answers the question why and how. Yeah, PRGS is a prototype developmental research grant scheme. It's for development of a prototype, merapatkan jurang antara penemuan makmal penyelidikan sehingga sebelum pra-commercialization. Ya. Then TRGS is Translational Research Grant Scheme. It involves both fundamental and exploratory research, merentas pelbagai cluster across discipline, across clusters of discipline, and very much transdisciplinary in nature. Whereas the LRGS grant scheme is a fundamental research dalam bidang keutamaan negara, of national interest, and it's a more extensive research, And hasil penemuan penyidikan tersebut boleh dikembangkan kepada projek yang bersifat applied, ya, penggunaan. So what is FRGS? Is a research grant under the KPT, Ministry of Education. It's a competitive fundamental research for knowledge transformation and national excellence. It cultivates, empower, preserve high impact research capacity to generate knowledge, which can contribute to many things, including talent development. So that's important for new talent development, intellectual growth, new technology invention, and dynamic civilization. The philosophy is to encourage basic research to generate new Malaysian modern knowledge, which can contribute to increase intellectual level, invention of new technologies, dynamic culture, in line with national aspiration. So this fundamental research basically is defined as basic research which can produce new theories, concepts, and ideas for development of new knowledge, or what you call a progression of knowledge. And the main objective is to accelerate the generation of Malaysian model theories, concepts, and ideas which will catalyze new discoveries that break the boundaries of knowledge and innovative creation. So that's in the general context. Yeah. Now, these are the research guidelines. The latest we have is 2022, Garis Panduan Skim Grant Penyidikan FRGS. There's also Tadbir Urus Dana Penyidikan 2021. That's the latest I can get hold of. And also, in terms of ethics, the MCRCR, the Malaysian Code of Responsible Conduct in Research. So all these guidelines are used in FRGS grant application. Okay, so the next I would like to mention on MOHI research domains. What are research domains? What are the research clusters? What are the socio-economic drivers and shared prosperity vision 2030 and sustainable developmental goals, the SDGs. Now, in terms of research domains, ada 7 research domains altogether. And all FRGS application must meet at least one of the 7 domains. And the domains include pure and applied sciences, technology, engineering, clinical and health sciences, social sciences, arts and applied arts, natural and cultural heritage, or information and communication technology. Jadi, each of the FRGS application or proposal must meet at least one of the 7 research domain. And it's very important to identify the research domain that you would like to submit your FRGS to. For example, the focus today is on clinical and health sciences. Related in that area. The reason being, if you put it in the a domain which is not the main thrust of your proposal, then it may not get the due evaluation. For example, it sent to say a different domain, right? So then the head of the research cluster may have to transfer that to another cluster, another domain, for example. So which means if the let's say medical, you send it to say an engineering related, because there's some minor engineering issues in there. So, and then it gets transferred over to medical later. And then the medical group may have lots of other proposal that is already assigned to clinical and health sciences. So it may not get the priority when there's too many applications in a particular domain. Yeah. So make sure it is sent to the most appropriate research domain. All right. So these are the 7 research domain, and setiap permohonan FRGS in 2022 at least, yet to see in 23, may not change, hendaklah memenuhi one of the following. So it must fulfill at least one of the research domain, one of the research cluster, and also 1010 MYSTIE, which I will show you the list afterwards, and also the other 2 SDGs, and also the other criteria that I've mentioned just now. So in terms of research domains, there are 7, so you choose one of those. In terms of research clusters, we need to choose one of those. And today's emphasis on the health side. Yeah, so there's food and safety and food safety security, basic infrastructure, climate change and environment, health, education and knowledgeable civil society, national security, social and well-being, or frontier technologies and advanced manufacturing. All right. So make sure that it's sent to the correct research cluster. And in terms of 10-10 My STI framework, in terms of socio-economic drivers, yeah, social technology, innovation, and economic drivers, there are 10, so we need to choose one one of 10 socio-economic drivers. And the My STIE framework consists of energy, business and financial services, culture, arts, tourism, medical and healthcare, smart technology and systems, smart cities, transportation, water and food, agriculture, forestry, education or environment, and biodiversity. Right. So, and also we need to choose and one of the key economic growth activities, yeah, KIGA, key economic growth activities from 1 to 15, which is the 15 shared prosperity vision for 2030, which include Islamic financial hub, digital economy, industrial revolution, content industry, Asian hub, halal and food hub, commodity Malaysia, logistic transportation and sustainable mobility, coastal and maritime economy, centers of excellence, renewable energy, green economy, smart and high value agriculture, and advanced and modern services, or Malaysia Truly Asia. That was the list that is given by KPT. And also there are also 17 sustainable SDG goals. It should meet at least one of the SDG goals, and whichever is most appropriate. For example, in good health and well-being, yeah, SDG 3. So what about the assessment process and criteria? So these are the assessment criteria, 10 altogether. Number 1 is the title. Number 2 is executive summary, and followed by research background, objectives, and methodology, expected results, track record of the project leader and composition of the team, the quality of the proposal, elements of FRGS criteria, and translational potential. And these are the weightage given to each of the 10 criteria. However, there are also, in addition, 2 new criteria, which I will give, that's added on to 2020. There is patent search and industrial collaboration, which I will go through in a minute. So basically, that's the form, the internal form that we have here in terms of evaluation form for FRGS, according to all these 3 criteria. And this is a summary of assessment for each of the criteria. Contohnya, very poor, poor, acceptable, good, and very good, ranging from 1 to 10, as you can see from here. And comments are very much encouraged from all reviewers, and particularly it is compulsory if the score is poor or very poor. That means it's less than 5. Yeah. And so these are the weightage of all those that criteria or parameters that is being looked at for every FRGS proposal. All right. So very important title, yeah, the executive summary, the research background, objectives, and the methodology. All right. So from the first, at least the first 5, we can tell whether this is fundamental or is not fundamental, yeah, for screening purposes. Now, yeah, these are the whole thing, the whole layout of the FRGS forms, and I alluded to you in red the ones that is used as in the criteria. Okay, which I will go through each and every of the 10 criteria, and the extra, that is the patent search and collaboration with industry or and any other agency. And basically, these are the skala permarkahan, which I've shown to you just now. And generally, if the marks given for any of these criteria that I've shown to you just now is less than 5, yeah, then that is automatically becomes not recommended. So you need to have at least 5 and above for it not being rejected. So that's the first point. Second point, that these are the overall marks that is given to every manuscript, and generally if they get 80 and above, that means 80 to 84 is recommended, and highly recommended if it's 85 and above. And generally if it's less than 80, it is not recommended. The new criteria is the patent search. So ada 3 perkara baru. Satu is the bukti cara patent. It's digalakkan. It's not compulsory. Maybe later it will become compulsory. So penyidik perlu mengukakan bukti cara patent bagi setiap permohonan. So they have to enclose the patent search. It is highly encouraged, right? And collaboration with industry and agency is also strongly encouraged, and with the evidence for that. For example, a letter of intention from the industry. And also on pengurusan risiko, the risk assessment has to be done, and it is wajib from the last cycle. Okay, and projek yang mencapai scientific merit yang ditetapkan akan dipertimbangkan untuk perakuan tersebut seterusnya, and for those criteria which are encouraged, iaitu kriteria syarat yang digalakkan, if the PI ketua penyelidik mengemukakan maklumat tersebut, maka tambahan akan diberi sekiranya penilaian awal certified above. So which means for proposals where they achieve marks 75 markah ke atas, right? Then if they produce this evidence for bukti cara patent dan juga kolaborasi industrial agent for what you call with these 2 criteria yang digalakkan, if it is being submitted together and they get more than 75%, at least 75 or more, then they may be awarded additional marks. Now, there are a few issues that need to be paid attention to in preparing of FRGS proposals. Need to read, understand, and follow the latest FRGS guidelines. So stay tuned to the 2023 guidelines. Avoid any issues related to technical knockouts. And generally, FRGS must be fundamental in nature, answering the question why and how. It's not an applied research. So daripada objective, daripada methodology, and executive summary dan sebagainya, the reviewers will be able to assess whether it is fundamental or non-fundamental in nature. All right. And risk assessment for FRGS is compulsory, and this is in terms of time, budget, as well as technical risk. I will go a bit in detail when I show you that slide nanti. Now, additional marks, as I mentioned to you, is are given for those yang dapat 75 and above as a baseline evaluation, and if they give the additional evidence of patent search and industrial collaboration, patent search and collaboration, they can be awarded additional marks. Now, what about the title? Okay, the title should be specific in nature, reflecting the fundamental issues to be resolved and its novelty, and brief and reflects the content of the proposal. So the title is very important. Now people the reviewers are more sympathetic. They go through the title, they go through the objectives and executive summary and the background and problem statement, etc. However, those days when the reviewers, earlier days, when they were quite brutal, they just look at the title. And if the title does not sound fundamental, it is knocked out at the first cycle, at the first round. However, I think they are more sympathetic now. They tend to at least go through the first 4 or 5 issues to identify that it's fundamental in nature. Okay, and that account to 5 marks of the total. And generally not too long. not too short, about 15 words on average. Okay, you must remember the reviewers are quite senior people. If it's too long, by the time they reach the 30th word, they have forgotten what is the first word on the title. Okay, so make it short and sweet, around 15 words. Okay, in terms of, I've mentioned to you just now the marks allocation, and usually from the title, executive summary, the background objectives, and the methodology, you would know whether this is fundamental or not, right? And usually some clusters, they would just go through the first few sections. If it's not fundamental in nature, it will not be approved at the first one. Okay, so that's very important. Now, next is the executive summary, and executive summary should contain several issues. One is the problem statement, the objectives, methodology, expected output, or outcome or implication of the study, and significance of the output, all right, in terms of future direction. So with that executive summary, usually we can gauge whether it's fundamental in nature or not, and whether it's worthy, yeah. And research background accounts about 15%, and that actually would include the elaboration of the title, the what is the problem statement, what are your research questions and hypotheses, and theoretical framework if applicable. And usually literature review on what is known thus far, yeah, related references, and cite the most recent references, usually the last 5 years or so. And also the reviewers usually would like to look at whether this particular study is in line with the government policy, national agenda, and global aspiration, whether it can help alleviate problem at local, national, or global level. Now, next is the objectives. Yeah, the objectives must be specific. It must be measurable, achievable, realistic, and within the time frame. So just remember SMART, S-M-A-R-T, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and within the time frame. Not too superfluous, not focused, right? It has to, and it has to relate to the problem statement and research questions, yeah? And also it answers the questions why and how. Okay, so it reflects the fundamentality of the research proposal. And the objectives too must be able to answer, yeah, answer the problem statement that you have mentioned earlier. So some proposals are rejected because dia tidak ada connectivity. The title is something else, the problem statement is something else, the objectives do not answer the problem statement, the methodology does not answer the objectives, or rather try to connect to the objectives, right? So that is the worst scenario that most proposals are being rejected, yeah? Now, in terms of methodology, that accounts quite a big chunk of the weightage. It has to be clear and detailed description of the methodology. May consist of, depending what you're doing, the field work, the sampling techniques, the interview sessions, the analysis, the lab work that is done at various stages, yeah, experimental protocol, methodology, whether it's an it's already an established method, you need to give the references, you know, and also statistical analysis, and able to achieve the research objectives. So very important to connect to the research objectives. So this method is to answer which objective, all right? And it has to be, if it's not connected, in other words, your methodology is not answering the objectives you have set up there, which in turn is not answering the problem statement you mentioned, that means there is no flow of the proposal, and usually that would be it will be not shortlisted from the onset. Okay, so in the methodology, don't forget to include the research design, the flow chart, yeah, and the Gantt chart, the activities that you plan to do according to the stages of the project and the milestones, yeah. So that's important. Next is expected results, yeah. So in expected result, you should be highlighting what are the new theories, new findings, yeah, or expected new knowledge you're going to generate in answering those problems that you have stated earlier. And also, you're expected to publish in index journals, whether WS or Scopus or ERA or my site. However, at least one of your published papers must be in WOS index journal. Yeah. Intellectual property, it's strongly encouraged if you can get them. All right. And in terms of human resource, new talents, masters and PhDs. I'll go through that in a minute in detail. Yeah. Okay. In terms of the GRA for a 3-year project, you are expected to produce 1 PhD or 2 masters or combination of the 2. Yeah. And for project of 2 years, yeah, at least one master or master student. Yeah. And the penyelia utama for this PhD and master's program must be the PI or the co-researcher from the same institution of that particular project in application. Okay. Now, in terms of the journals, 2 index journal, as I mentioned, WS, Scopus, or My Site Index, or even ERA, but one of which has to be indexed in Web of Science. Yeah. And it is strongly encouraged, yeah, that of these publications produced, at least one publication is co-authored by the industry. Yeah, that means, in other words, indicating collaborative research with the industry in index journal. Okay, that would be good. That's strongly encouraged. It's not compulsory, but strongly encouraged. Yeah, and in terms of Harta Intellect, it's also encouraged to produce Harta Intellect and also research deliverables. It can be any form of, it's not stated, it can be a copyright, it can be anything. It can be patent, it can be a copyright, it can be a trade secret or something like that. Okay, so this is the garis panduan in 2022. It's all there, you can refer. But we wait for the 2023, but it will be similar with some additionals. But it's important to note what is it that's additional or different from 2022 later on. I've mentioned tadi regarding the WS and the students, in a 3-year project, priority will be given for those who can. Master student is considered as an equivalent. All right. Okay. For those who are asking for 2 years, the researcher can also ask for PhD student, provided there is evidence that the student has already started, yeah, data register, and you're asking for 2-year project to finish up the PhD, a student who has already registered for a PhD program. Okay, the 7 criteria is on the track record of the project leader and the team composition, right? That's very important. So track record of the project leader is looked at, yeah. So maknanya evidence of previous successful research projects and the research team, yeah. A well-balanced research team, either senior, either junior, all right, and also the qualification, the areas of expertise, and also the track record of the PI as well as the research team members. I think what most important is that there is expertise in the relevant areas that is being studied in the FRGS. We have in the past had some research team where it consists of only junior members, right? It's not a well-balanced team. Again, that is not a positive point, or all senior members sahaja. So a well-balanced team is much sought after. Satu. Kedua, in terms of the bidang kepakaran must be related. We've had, for example, an application from a particular university asking for a particular area of interest within the grant, but the expertise is not in some of the project members. So that is being questioned. And the other thing is, don't forget to update our research profile in Migrant, yeah, so that all the updated achievement in the CV is captured there. Yeah. Okay. Is a pakar is dalam bidang, I mentioned that, and that is based on the evidence shown by the research projects as well as past publications. All right. So if they are pakar dalam bidang and a well-balanced team, usually they can get a full marks for that. And also there's a well balance between a senior member, a professor, and some lecturers in there, and an AP and other senior and junior. Again, you can obtain full marks from there. But if it's only senior sahaja atau junior sahaja dalam tu, you may not get full marks for that. In some clusters, they limit it to 7 marks at most if it's not a well-balanced team. This is to encourage mentoring process that can occur within the team, and to encourage the younger ones to come in, and for the senior members to mentor the younger ones as well. Now, the quality of research accounts for about 10%. That's very important for you to take care after the quality of the research proposal. Proposal of the research. It's meticulously done. It's in a way that's proper use of language without much spelling, grammar, typo errors that shows that you have not vet through within the team. So start early. Go through and make sure what has been written to is clear. There's clarity, easily understood in a language that is proper without much errors that sometimes just dishearten the reviewer to read it, and that's good formatting presentation. So it is very outstanding presentation. In other words, it reflects that you have put in a lot of effort within the team, to come up with a good quality proposal. And the other issues that's looked at is in terms of the FRGS criteria. That means it's novel. It's not cut and paste from somewhere. It is novel. It's cutting edge, and high impact with a high potential of a breakthrough research. The output is expected to give some breakthrough research output for the country. Okay, be it at local, national, or international level. So novel, and it's not too difficult to check, because we can always do that, the similarity index. The reviewers can just check similarity index. If it's just 100%, we have had cases where 100% similarity index is copy and paste daripada dia punya thesis previously. 98 references kat thesis dia, 98 references dalam proposal tu. Word by word, almost 100% similarity index. So that is a no-no. Ataupun dia ambil orang punya proposal, something like that has already been approved. Okay, so which means if it is similar to a project previously approved, all right, then more than 30% similarity index, it will be rejected. However, if there is, let's say, a particular researcher has a project that was rejected previously, all right, and then dia dah buat penambahbaikan, dia dah take into account all the comments given, dia dah improve on it, it can still be evaluated accordingly. All right. So in other words, kalau similarity index very high, kita tidak terus tolak, tetapi we look whether that is based on a previous project where penambahbaikan has been done, ataupun it is similarity index is high because it is taken from previous project that has been approved. All right, so that will be rejected. Okay, so that novelty must be there. Now the other issue is on translational potential, and one issue that is looked into is the risk assessment in terms of time, in terms of technical, and in terms of budget issues, and also impact of quantiple helix, iaitu 5 perkara, the impact to the society, to the academia, to the industry, sorry about the typo error, to the government, and to the country, and also to the environment. So put all that in your proposal for the additional marks that's given for translational potential. Now in 2022, risk management or risk assessment is compulsory. All right, so you need to fill up the technical, the timing, as well as the budgetary implication in terms of low, moderate, or high risk. At the same time, it would be good if you do a SWOT analysis. In other words, the strength, the weakness, opportunities, and threats of the research that you're planning to do. All right. Now, if you do the risk assessment, which is compulsory, plus you also give some explanation on the expected risk, yeah, and you do a SWOT analysis, you may achieve the full marks. Okay. Now, if you have some explanation about why you say it is low, moderate, or high risk without SWOT analysis, there is much lower maximum marks that you can get, right? And if you don't do any risk assessment as well, that could be a technical knockout. In other words, it will be rejected on technical grounds, yeah, because it's compulsory. Okay, in terms of risk assessment, there is again in 2022 ada 3 syarat tambahan, and risk assessment is one of them. The other one is patent search and industrial collaboration. Now, in risk assessment, the researcher need to identify any risk. At the same time, do the SWOT analysis before, during, and after the research. Okay, and there are 3 areas I've mentioned to you just now: on technical aspect, on the monetary aspect of budget, and in terms of time. Yeah, whether it is low, moderate, or high. All right, so that is wajib as a syarat tambahan in 2022. And perhaps it will be the same in 2023. We have yet to see. Now, there are additional marks if you achieve 75 at least in total. Then additional marks can be given in terms of patent search, 2.5%, and as well as evidence for collaboration with the industry or any agency. Yeah. Now, in terms of keperluan pengurusan risiko tadi I dah mention, so that is the one that you need to fill up on my grants. I've explained to you. The second additional requirement is the patent search, and you must, if you want to get extra marks, need to show the evidence of patent search, right? And that can be done on this website. For example, objektif utama adalah memberi kesedaran or awareness mengenai keperluan dan kepentingan menghasilkan penyidikan yang unik and innovative. And this is syarat khusus and digalakkan under FRGS. Okay. Kata kunci, ya, the keywords, ya, cara patent mesti sama dengan kata kunci yang dinyatakan dalam proposal, ya, dan guna borang terkini. For example, if it is for 2023, you must do the patent search in 2023. Okay, so in 2022 your proposal, kalau it is a patent search in 2021, it will not be accepted. Okay, so bagi yang terkini, and the password must be similar with what the proposal. And perlu dikemukakan bagi setiap permohonan grant penyidikan. I've mentioned to you just now. And this is the bukti to fill up in the forms. Okay. And if you have the patent search with the explanation, you may achieve additional a maximum of 10 marks for that section. And without explanation, with the patent search without explanation, maybe some classes limit to 6 marks, yeah, out of 10. Now, in terms of collaboration, okay, kolaborasi dengan industri and agency yang berkaitan, related areas, yeah, with the project that is being submitted. The bukti for this, the evidence is letter of intent, LOI, and lain-lain dokumen yang berkaitan. Email sahaja tak cukup, yeah. And digalakkan untuk FR dengan PRGS. This is a new syarat tambahan for FRGS last year, particularly in areas of teknologi kejuruteraan, teknologi maklumat komunikasi, sains kesihatan dan clinical. So we are affected by that, and sains tulen dan penggunaan. Yeah, and so I've mentioned to you just now. So and also in some clusters that they make a guideline that if the patent search and collaboration is not done for the translational research component, translational research potential, not translational research. The potential for translational research should not exceed 7 out of 10. Now, this is the collaboration with the agency atau industri yang berkaitan. Letter of intent I mentioned to you just now. This is similar to what I showed to you earlier. Okay. Now, the other important issue is pematuhan peraturan kewangan. Alright. Now, at the PTJ level, at the university level, kalau ada tidak mematuhi peraturan, we can correct. The reviewers can help to correct it, and it's corrected, so it becomes no issue. But at KPT level, sekiranya the proposal done by the PI does not fulfill the peraturan kewangan, the guidelines for kewangan, then it may be rejected. Depends on the reviewer. Some reviewers are more sympathetic, katalah at KPT level, dia nampak you minta misalnya vote 35,000 untuk peralatan. You cannot apply for that, but unless you have a strong justification, you must give a strong justification, and plus there is a quotation attached to it. Alright? Now, for some reviewers, mungkin they are more sympathetic, they just remove the vote 35,000 because there's no quotation, there's no justification. They remove it, tapi dia tak reject the proposal. But some reviewers, they follow by the book. They consider that is tidak mematuhi peraturan at KPT level and is outright reject. And this particularly can happen when there's a lot of proposal that is being submitted and very minimal budget is available. So they have to be more stringent in excluding those proposals di mana ianya tidak mematuhi peraturan kewangan. Okay? Now let's go through on the budget punya issues and the peraturan kewangan. Basically these are the main votes. There is vote 11,000 for allow GRA. For those of you yang biasa ada grant, you are familiar with this, right? This is for the GRA. Wages, and vote 21,000 perjalanan dan that's travel, and 24,000 is rental, 27,000 V, 27,000 is for research material, 28,000 for repair, baik pulih and ubah suaian, and 29,000 is for perkhidmatan ikhtisas, honorary, and also professional services. And for vote 35,000 is for accessory and peralatan. As I mentioned to you, it must not exceed 40%, and mesti ada strong justification and also a quotation for it, right? And perjalanan should not be more than 20% of overall. I will go through with you in a minute. Okay, now apa yang tidak dibenarkan untuk guna peruntukan grant ni? Untuk pembelian yang tiada kaitan langsung dengan projek penyelidikan. So, in general, tidak dibenarkan pembelian perkara berikut. Firstly, yuran keahlian badan profesional or ikhtisas. For example, for medical, you want to pay for your annual membership fee for any professional body, tak dibenarkan. Nombor 2, pembelian bahan rujukan, reference material, tak boleh. Number 3, pembelian peralatan ICT communication, contohnya handphone, and laptop, computer, for example, printer, cartridge dan seumpamanya. That the institution is supposed to support that part of the research. We have instances in the past, for example, a particular researcher bought 2 handphones yang dia nak guna pakai, and that's picked up by KPT, and that was transmitted through to the researcher, the PI, melalui the university for that handphone worth, dua handphone worth 6,000 and asked to bayar balik. Alright, so apa yang tak boleh, tidak dibenarkan, don't ask for it. However, certain things like computer that is strongly justified for certain field work or perisian yang melibatkan software dan sebagainya, then mungkin boleh diluluskan and they have been approved, but there must be strong justification for it. But in general, no, it's not allowed. And the number 4 is bill, utility, telecommunication, your phone bills dan sebagainya tidak dibenarkan. Peralatan pejabat juga tidak dibenarkan. Stationaries, meja, kerusi, alat tulis, all that should be supported from the institution. Pembelian peralatan storage requirement, for example, external hard drive, pen drive, CD dan sebagainya, that's not allowed. Pembayaran sewaan ruang facility, for example, you want to use a certain research facility in the university, you want to get the rental contohnya, from the grant, that's not allowed unless it's rented outside and you need that for the project, outside the institution. And for example, rental of transportation, for example, for requirement of your project, that is allowable. Pembayaran memfailkan harta intelek dan seumpamanya, except for PRGS, that has to be supported by other means of funding. Lain-lain pembelian yang tidak berkaitan secara langsung dengan projek penyelidikan is not allowed. It's got nothing to do. For example, you want to buy an equipment, for an equipment that is not even mentioned in your methodology. Ataupun nak hantar for servicing, maintenance, baik pulih of equipment in your department. Nothing to do with the research, right? So that is not allowable, and the reviews pick that up very easily, And so in terms of budget, honest budgeting, ask only what you need, but ask sufficiently, because the reviewers, the panels are generally not allowed to add on. Previously in the past, I know some clusters, I will mention some clusters, they are very generous towards their cluster applications, Orang tu minta X amount, dia jadikan 2X because dia rasa perlu untuk tu. But now the ruling is for reviewers, for the panels, they are not allowed to add on to what the applicant has already asked for. So think through, don't ask superfluously, just ask what you really need reasonably, but sufficiently. Don't to ask insufficiently, in the end you will suffer in conducting the budget. And the reviewers are not allowed to add on, although they think that you should have asked for more. But on the other hand, if you ask too much, the chances of you getting is much lower, and particularly if you don't need it. For example, the ceiling is 250,000, per proposal. But if everybody asks for 250,000, then not many grants will be approved, or not many proposals will be approved. So ask what you need, but sufficient. That's how I summarize it. And then panel usually approve of the budget that is reasonable. Don't add to what you ask for except in exceptional cases, macam for example peralatan. Kalau dah ada dalam institute tu, you need to share around, share it by all means. Don't ask for another new equipment, for example, when you already have in the institution. For example, let's say the vote 35,000 untuk pembelian peralatan, it may not be approved, but you can actually guna and cari that particular peralatan, maybe an expensive, big equipment, expensive. It's not available at your institution, but you can look for at other places where it's available, within your institution or outside your institution, right? But outside institution, you may add the cost of bayaran perkhidmatan, at least the 29,000 punya vote. You may have to pay to use in the industry, for example, or another organization. Now, in terms of vote 11,000, that's the wages. It's for master student up to 2,000, although most people would cost around 1,008, and maximum for PhD 2,005. We cost it at 2,300 in most situations per month. Budget sufficiently so that it can cover your student for the period that is allowable. For PhD 3 years, and for masters up to 2 years. Okay, don't add. If usually the reviewers will not add, if the PI ask for less, the reviewers are not allowed to add on. Now, in terms of travelling, vote 21,000 perjalanan untuk persidangan dalam dan luar negara. And that does not include data collection. Project kalau 2 years, generally maximum is about 10,000. And for 3 years, max is about 12,000. That's a ballpark figure. And for conference, contohnya di luar negara, usually is allowed only once throughout the project. And conference, I'm talking about conference overseas, usually allowed, if at all, once throughout the project, number one. And number two, perjalanan luar negara is not allowed in the first year of the project. It's from 2 years onwards. Untuk persidangan dalam negara is allowed from year one, and in general, not more than once every year, per year. Okay, in terms of sewaan, pembayaran sewaan ruang fasiliti di PPJ tidak dibenarkan, but you may use that to use it outside, or your institution. And for example, sewa kenderaan dan sebagainya. Vote 27,000 for research material. Some you may need quotation, some may not need quotation, but you need to specify what is it for. Kecuali untuk pembelian yang besar, you need a proper quotation. And penyelenggaraan, but generally I think for SNT usually we get a quotation. Untuk 28,000 for maintenance, hanya untuk alat yang digunakan dalam penyidikan dan ada dinyatakan dalam metodologi kajian. So which means it is stated in your methodology and you need to have that maintenance done for a particular equipment that is being used. For example, you can ask under maintenance. And it's not meant, penyelenggaraan ini untuk alat guna sama yang sepatutnya diselenggara oleh pihak universiti. Okay, in terms of vote 29,000 is for honorarium, and professional services. You can use this untuk bayaran research conference registration. You run seminar dalam negara sekali setahun, luar negara sekali per project, sekali sahaja. And bayaran for publication, maximum is up to RM8,000, specifically untuk Q1, Q2, termasuk cost editing. So you need to budget that early and get your publication to accepted quickly so that you can use it before your grant is being closed. Once it's been closed, cannot use that funding to pay for your journal fees if you have not got your journal accepted. Now, untuk bayaran patent is not allocate. There's no allocation for FRGS, but only for PRGS. And untuk short course untuk penyidik tidak boleh because penyidik expected as pakar. But you may want to send a junior co-researcher for a particular course or something of that nature. Okay. And okay, untuk mesti ada quotation. I mentioned 35,000 special equipment. However, tidak ada quotation and justification, projek akan ditolak, tidak mengikut peraturan kewangan. And if you want to buy ataupun rent a Prisian software, you can use vote 27,000 if it's less than 5,000 ringgit. Tetapi if it's more than 5,000 ringgit, you can use the vote 35,000. Okay. Right, and also 29,000 untuk pembaharuan lesen of a software or penyelenggaraan. To buy computer dibenarkan dengan syarat memang diperlukan untuk kajian and there's a strong justification for that. Otherwise, it would not be approved. Okay, just to illustrate on assessment of some examples, this is allow me to share some of the responsibilities of the panel so we would understand. Untuk panel dalaman, that is, for example, in some institutions, I think ideally we should do evaluation at PTJ level, so contohnya di faculty atau C, dan juga at RMC level. Tapi most often kadang-kadang kalau buat lambat memang tak sempat. Okay, so but at least ada 2 level vetting. And the main objective of institutional evaluation is to improve the proposal. Alright, so which means you submit, ada penambahbaikan yang dibuat, therefore the researcher can improve on it and resubmit sehingga it's to the level that is better than what it was before. That's the whole idea. Internal penambahbaikan, continuous assessment and improvement. Number one. But at KPT level is for them to look at eventually, it is hoped that eventually in years to come, that evaluation should be done at the institutional level sahaja. But the garis panduan, all the criteria, all the prerequisites, requirement, guidelines must be adhered to. And then at KPT level, penakziran dia, the KPT level looks at the way the institution manage the vetting or the reviewing process of the proposal. And if it's not following what has been outlined, then it will be rejected. And if many are not fulfilling the outline, then the whole application for a particular institution may be jeopardized, as what has happened before. So we have to be very careful about that. For example, the evaluation should be done by at least a Professor Madya and above. Itu adalah garis panduan peraturan KPT which we need to adhere to. And particularly in medics, for example, pharmacy and maybe dentistry, kalau is contohnya DG atau DU 54 or 56 yang tidak bergelar profesor, mereka tidak layak pada kaca mata KPT untuk evaluate a particular proposal. So we have to adhere to that requirement. So it is 54 and above yang bergelar profesor dan profesor atau Profesor Madya. Then so these are just to highlight at KPT level, they look at how individual institution review our proposals, and according to the guidelines already set. Now, these are responsibilities of the panels, just to share with you so that we know what to expect from the panel. Now, komen yang diberi perlulah selari dengan markah yang diberi. Tak bolehlah bagi markah tinggi tapi komennya very negative. Atau komen very positif tapi markah beri less than 5. So which means it is not acceptable. So it is ambiguous. And komen diberi perlu jelas. And we have the right to know what are the concerns or the comments penambah. At the end of the day is for penambahbaikan. So that if it's rejected this time, the next time you can improve on it and resubmit, contohnya. So, and ulasan diberi should be relevant, jelas, lengkap bagi memudahkan penyidik membuat penambahbaikan, including pemindahan item antara vote-vote tertentu. Contohnya conference registration. It should not be under travel vote. It should be under vote honorary, and professional services. Vote 29,000. Dan bukan vote travel contoh. Dan sebarang pengurangan peruntukan mana-mana vote perlu berpandukan pada garis panduan dan takbir urus. Bukan sesuka hati, tetapi there's a guideline for that. And any decision made should not be influenced by any parties for the matter. So it should be just, and without prejudice, atau favor. And panel perlu menjaga kerahsiaan keputusan dan membuat penilaian projek yang diamanahkan sebaik mungkin. Sekiranya terdapat konflik, they have to refer back to the cluster heads and they need to discuss and look into what are the issues. For example, there may be like dua reviewers yang tengok and they make a berbeza pendapat, ada konflik, they have to lantik a third one to look at it independently, for example. Now, these are examples of comments from the reviewers, and for example, it is not fundamental research proposal. So this proposal is lacking in fundamental aspects. Proposal layak untuk DBS sekiranya budget mencukupi. So these are not really becoming comments, because at the end of the day, the researcher does not know apa dia yang saya perlu baiki. So maybe perhaps write something more to it, like not a fundamental research proposal, the objectives or even the title or methodology clearly reflect it is an applied research contohnya. Then at least the researcher knows di mana dia ada room for penambahbaikan, ada ruang untuk memperbaiki proposal dia. This is another example yang reviewer rajin sikit bagi komen, the research proposal has been poorly written, research methodology is not clear and the budget is not reasonable. The proposer is not able to demonstrate the adequate breadth and depth which can justify the success of the project. For example, even though the issue put across dalam proposal tu is significant, has a high potential impact, but the research proposal itself failed to address the issues clearly. Maknanya tak jelas, it's not shown, it's not clearly written. And the relationship between the problem statement and the objectives are not properly demonstrated in the proposal. So maknanya the title tu kena tally dengan the problem statement, and the problem statement tu objectives menjawab problem statement tu, methodology tu adalah appropriate to answer or to solve the problem as stated in the objectives, dan sebagainya. So when there's the lack or loss of that connectivity, title dia lain, the problem statement cerita lain, the objective does not answer the problem statement, methodology dia lain, tidak menjawab objektif yang dinyatakan, then it becomes a total no-no and a rejection. And some other examples, comment by the reviewers would be that the title, the objectives and methods are not reflecting fundamental issues, not answering the questions why and how. So that is a fundamental issue. Ataupun contohnya, another one would be the problem statement indicated the issue of comparing, say, a compound A versus compound B in assessing its atheroprotective effects, misalnya atherosclerosis protective effect, but none about this has been highlighted in the objectives and methodology. Okay, so maknanya loss of connectivity to antara problem statement dengan objective methodology, as I've alluded to you just now. Ataupun another comment would be the objectives are too vague, focusing on screening of bioactive compounds of a particular, natural product misalnya, assessing their properties. Therefore, the methodology proposed is basically covering screening of compounds. Screening is a no-no in fundamental research, and examining the anti-atherosclerotic potentials based on only two parameters, insufficient, lack of depth and breadth, of that study, and it's not much different from those previous applied research grant that the author or the team has applied for, from other projects, So panels are generally requested to suggest or also to recommend approval of applications which are good and novel, high impact, leading to breakthrough research. So in general, itulah the crux, that's what it is. So example of an overall recommendation is, this is a good recommendation. Contohnya, the title includes all keywords of this proposal, not too short, not too long, usually about 15 words or so. Executive summary highlighted the main points of the proposal, right? And the research background revised, kalau dia dah bagi komen sebelum tu, as suggested. The objectives are appropriate, expected results are appropriate, track record, and the team mungkin ada some dia tidak update dia punya CV ni at institutional level. It can still be amended as suggested. Project member, area of expertise of team members relevant to the proposed work. I would look at the balance between the team, consisting of senior and junior members, giving room for mentorship, for future HR development. Quality of proposal, very good. Dari segi proper usage of language, no typos or minimal spelling errors, Elements of FRGS criteria, that's important. In terms of it being novel, potential novel target, contohnya as anti-cancer and anti-atherosclerotic agent, for example, and its translational potential. That's looking at the 5 quadruple helix that I mentioned earlier, and also looking at its risk potential that I mentioned just now. 3 benda, the budget, the technical, and as well as the time and technical aspects, And SWOT analysis is there, so well written with explanation, and then the vote, given are appropriate according to the guidelines that I've discussed briefly just now, according to each vote. So lastly, just briefly on the internal panel RMC KPT evaluation, I've mentioned some of them. Basically, this is the flow for 2022 and it will be similar this year, insyaAllah. Permohonan penyelidik, then it will be nilai peringkat institusi. It will be good if masing-masing PTJ have their internal evaluation as well, with the main intention untuk penambahbaikan. So for the younger researchers, especially when you have negative comments from the reviewers at institutional level or even PTJ, look at it positively. It's not at institutional level, it's not meant to reject saja. No, it's not meant to reject. It is to give constructive comment to improve it further, so that by the time it goes to KPT though, it has very minimal errors or weakness or things that has been overlooked, not fulfilling the requirements and the technical issues that I mentioned just now. Okay, so peringkat institusi is penambahbaikan dan penaziran at KPT level and penilaian dekat KPT level. Penaziran tu they will look that the review whole process are done properly, and then at KPT level the final evaluation and then perakuan by jawatankuasa penilaian, jawatankuasa teknikal, jawatankuasa pemandu at KPT level before the final decision is being made. What percentage are being approved, who are being approved, and which proposals are not being approved, and the justification for that. Yeah, overall to match the budget as well. Okay, so these are the cadangan pendidikan yang diorang mesti mematuhi kriteria pendidikan yang diorang mesti menghasilkan idea, teori, konsep, kaedah, model, proses baru, and pendidikan yang berpotensi untuk menyumbang kepada agenda strategik negara. And these are also requirement, projek FRGS pada fasa terdahulu. In 2022, untuk semua new application, projek FRGS pada fasa yang terdahulu mesti mencapai at least 75% bagi projek aktif dan 100% bagi projek FRGS Racer and projek tamat. So these are all clearly made by RMC. It has to be fulfilled, and then your it's all updated dalam my grant, and your CV, your research profile has to be updated, to get the optimal possible output for your application. Tapi if you don't fulfill that, that's a prerequisite. It will be a technical knockout. So kemaskan dari sekarang. Okay, so I've shown you this earlier. All right, so if any one of these, get less than 5 marks, it will automatically be not recommended. So every section, it has to be looked into, that it should be at least acceptable, if not good or very good. To try to go for very good and look for points that can render it to be very good or good in the same margin. And the new criteria that I've mentioned just now, the patent search, the collaboration, risiko assessment tu wajib, but collaboration dengan industrial collaboration dengan patent search tu adalah encouraged. And if you get at least 75% overall marks, then they will look at the additional criteria to give you more marks. Contoh ulasan penilaian yang perlu dielakkan. Okay, this is example, continuation to what I mentioned earlier. Good proposal but not good enough. What does that mean? Does not help the researcher. So you need to give ulasan. Sepatutnya the reviewer should give the ulasan untuk menambah baik research dia, walaupun rejected, at least in future. And also contohnya, we don't want things like only one IPT panel recommended a proposal. So what does that mean? Why is it not beri ulasan teknikal berkaitan tersebut? So you can request for it if it's not given to you. You can write to the ketua cluster. Then the other one is in view of all the comments above, I cannot recommend this project to be granted. Right? So by right, you should click on the retrieve all comments. The reviewer should boleh tengok all comments. Then based on that, they can make the final comments. And not novel medium impact. So by right, ulasan teknikal should be given and perincian berkaitan projek tersebut. And also, kalau CV you tidak complete, they may not be able to assess properly in terms of your expertise, your research mileage, your success stories in the past, dan sebagainya, and your expertise within the group are appropriate for that particular project. Alright, so again, make sure our CVs are complete and updated. Alright, macam komen bagi technical knockup sahaja. What does it mean? In which section and why? Based on what? Okay, and this is just to share with you that panel will not be able to give you the bonus marks if you do not give the evidence for the patent search, for example, or the patent search is outdated. Maknanya for 2022 you hantar yang 2020 punya patent search, tak boleh. And then for example, evidence for potential collaboration is there must be letter of intent. Kalau email sahaja sebagai barang bukti, no, without letter of intent, you may not be given the bonus marks for the patent search section. Yeah. And okay, this is on the budget too. So we are advised to pohon amount yang perlu secukupnya. That means ask what's required but sufficiently, because the reviewers will not be able to add on what you already asked. They cannot add on, although they feel that you need a bit more budget. But if you're too much where you actually don't require it, then it becomes unreasonable budget. So you must be able to strike the balance. Yeah. Also, hanya apa yang difikirkan perlu related to the project, not unrelated to the project. Okay. And usually the reviewers will be advised not to cut too much sehingga menyukarkan pelaksanaan projek. But sometimes the budget is very constrained. They may have to cut and you may need to shrink the scope of your study if you want to take up the offer of project funding. And also check thoroughly your proposal. Jangan, especially when it comes to funding tu, jangan ada tertinggal 1 zero or 2 zeros. Yang sepatutnya 36,000, you letak 3,600 because the reviewers are not supposed to change that. This all should be picked up at the PTJ ataupun institutional level, at the university level. That should be picked up and corrected. But once it reach KPT, the reviewers cannot add on to what you have misdeclared. Alright, macam 36,000 jadi 3,600. Alright, but it looks ridiculous. I will show you some example. For example, okay, contoh yang budget yang very obvious here, apa dia? In vote 11,000, you allot for GRE saja. You put there field assistant. Field assistant tak boleh dekat sini. Field assistant dekat honorary. Vote 29,000. Okay, and contohnya yang kat sini, the ones I've mentioned just now, it should be 24 months 36,000, tapi grand total dia 3,600. Alright, so if you have so many proposal, you might have a reviewer yang sympathetic on you, but you might have a reviewer who are told to be very stringent because there are so many proposals. They have to be very stringent about vetting. This could be just rejected, for this reason. So be careful. Check through, and the whole research team should check through, not just the PI sahaja, right? The whole research team should support the PI in submitting a particular research proposal. And this is another error. Contohnya untuk vote travelling and transportation RM10. And this is another example, RM16, untuk peruntukan lulus bagi vote 29,000, which is honorarium and professional services. Okay, which is ridiculous, but it can happen. Okay, this is another one. Peruntukan asal yang dipohon adalah 4,000. Terdapat penambahan amount sebanyak 5,000. So they will pick up if the reviewer KPT level is trying to add on. You are not allowed to do that. So you minta 4, get 4 if they approve. Okay, non-disclosure agreement. All reviewers are supposed to sign that, and they need to be honest about honoring the confidentiality of each and every proposal, and to do their roles and responsibility as I mentioned to you earlier. And we as researchers should follow the guidelines and also abide by the prerequisite regulation and be honest about the funding that we have requested for. And so these are the 3 documents, garis panduan. We shall await in patients, 2022, I'm sure pihak RMC akan mendapatkan the moment that copy 2023, the moment is out from KPT, and also there's dari panduan tatbik ulus, berkaitan dengan permohonan grant daripada KPT, dan maka bonus untuk cara patent kolaborasi hanya diberikan untuk pembuktian yang betul dan relevan dengan penyelidikan yang dicadangkan. This one is 5 marks and above. They could ups for grabs, for 5%, 2.5% for patent and 2.5% for evidence of industrial collaboration. Okay, with that, thank you very much, and I welcome any comments, queries, or questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, Professor Datin Dr. Hapizah Nawawi, for the very valuable inputs and tips in guiding all the applicants in writing and winning the FRGS grant. Okay, and the example that you just showed just now, the overall recommendations, is so important for us. I believe that this is how we want to properly write our proposal, right? So now we just move to Q&A session, Prof, together with Dr. Siti.
Sorry, tak dengar.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, Dr. Yana. Yeah.
So we just move to the Q&A session.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So together with the Dr. Siti, Hamimah. Okay.
We can have a panel discussion.
Yeah. So the first questions from Noor Shazmi. Assalamualaikum, Prof. How about if the PI is the PhD student? The PI herself is the postgraduate student in this project. It can be counted as the output?
Hamimah, can you comment on that?
Sorry, the first question is Yana. The
Yeah,
PI
from
is the
Noor
PhD.
Shazmi.
Yes, PI is the PhD student. The PI herself is the postgraduate student in the project. Can it be counted as an output? This one, if the PI is a PhD student, is it a part-time? Because I know that if you are on study leave, you're not eligible to be PI for the project. So I suppose the PI now is not the PhD student. Perhaps the co-researcher are the PI now. And if the co-researcher,
the
PI,
this question, Hamimah, they mentioned, Hamimah, the PI herself is the postgraduate student. What we know from the guideline, if any staff who is even on sabbatical for more than 6 months is not eligible to apply.
Yes.
Or kalau they're registered for a PhD student.
But what I remember, I do counter this, Prof. There's perhaps the one that are waiting for a PhD, they apply for FRGS. This is what I remember from my experience. Perhaps once you have the grant, but then you went on for study leave, and the PI is not you anymore, and your co-researcher has become the PI. And I'm sure that can be counted if you're not the PI anymore. And as a student, and if you're study leave, I agree with Prof. You will not be eligible to hit the project.
Cannot become a member also, Prof. If I can add, if the candidate become postgraduate student, he need to
withdraw.
PI co-researcher, so memang PI student tu tak boleh daripada PI atau daripada co-researcher, Prof. Kalau saya boleh tambah.
Yeah, even for postdocs, people who are on postdocs appointment, right? They cannot be a member, but they can be, a member in the list of application. But they can become a co-author of the paper if they are involved with the study. Yeah.
Right. Okay, clear. Next we go to second question from Faika binti Awal. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Jika potential PhD atau master student telah mendapat scholar sewaktu enrollment, adakah mereka masih layak untuk menerima bayaran sebagai GRA?
Mereka telah menerima apa? Sorry?
Scholarship.
Scholarship, okay. as far as I know, a particular student registered for either masters or PhD cannot be double paid. Meaning that kalau dia sudah terima scholarship untuk a particular, let's say a PhD program, dia terima scholarship, dia tidak boleh terima, dia tidak boleh tidak boleh terima GRA lah, ataupun register on the GRA program.
Register tidak berbayar, setahu saya boleh, Prof.
Register tak
dalam
ada masalah,
sistem.
tetapi they cannot be double
Bayar.
paid lah.
Double paid, ya betul.
Contohnya jika mereka terima say GIP for example, during that period dia terima GIP tu, dia tidak boleh terima bayaran daripada GRA tu. Okay.
Okay, clear. Okay, next third question from Sherlyn. How many maximum of co-researcher is allowed?
Okay, maybe AP Hamimah nak address that.
Seingat saya dalam sistem kita boleh add up to 5 lah. 5, if I remember correctly, 5 researcher, termasuk, tak silap saya, termasuk PI.
Yeah.
And then kalau berbalik
KPT
pada
level, at KPT level, garis panduan, is there a limitation put there? Dalam KPT guideline, is there such
dalam KPT
limitation?
guidelines, kalau dalam ni tak ada lah, Prof, dalam guideline-nya. Tapi dalam sistem itself, dalam my grant, ya.
Dalam my grant, you can enter up to 5, ya. More than 5 dia tak terima. Can you enter the 6 person if you wish to as a PI?
Person. Tak boleh, Prof. Ingat saya
Tak
dalam
boleh,
sistem.
ya. It does not allow, ya. My grant, that means that's from KPT lah. That's from KPT, kan?
Ya, betul.
Betul, Prof.
Right, so maybe maximum of 5 then. However, just my comment on this kan, memang katalah that is true as what we observe up to 5. However, if we want to, let's say kadang-kadang as we go along, my own experience, as we go along, katalah kita put in 5. But as we go along, we need some expertise that we didn't that was not able, or rather, we are not able to add on from the beginning. Alright? Then you can add on the person, maybe not at the system, tetapi dia boleh jadi co-researcher and co-author of the paper, provided dia ada significant contribution to the study lah. Hanya mungkin nama dia tiada dalam sistem tersebut. Itu je lah. Tapi dari segi output, mungkinnya ada contribution, kita boleh add as a co-author. It's quite ethical to do that. Okay?
Right. Okay. From the same person juga, if the FRGS is rejected last year, can we revise according to the reviewer's comment only, or we need to have a moderate or major revision so that the proposal doesn't look recycled? Will the reviewer able to see the correction made?
Okay. Yeah, I think I brought that in one of the slides about similarity index too, yeah. Now, similarity index is basically for the reviewers to screen through to look for the novelty. Okay. Now, untuk mereka yang pernah submit before, and then bila you submit with the corrections and improvement dan sebagainya, the similarity index tu akan keluar as more than 30% lah, or maybe higher than that. However, but the reviewers can identify that was your proposal the last time, and also identify that you have made some changes. They will be able to access the previous application. Okay, so on that accord, it can be reviewed and give due what you call review process lah, macam biasa. But if you have taken into account the comments made by the reviewers previously, plus also vigorous vetting and review, continuous improvement at even the PTJ level or even the RMC level, then ada rezeki, insyaAllah you should be given the due recognition, right? And it will not be taken out because similarity index too high, because it's the same proposal but it was rejected the last time. So in other words, similarity index 2 is mainly to identify proposal yang dulu pernah diterima sama ada by that group or previous group. Lepas tu dia hantar lagi proposal yang sama, more than 30% or even 100%. Okay? Then of course that's outright reject. Okay?
I
Or
can
even
add on.
that proposal belong to somebody else. Okay, and not to mention lah, it shouldn't happen, but sometimes when it happened. So ada non-disclosure agreement. Alright? And then you see ada orang hantar somebody else's proposal. Yeah? And you know that is not from the previous group di mana proposal dia telah di reject and they make improvement. Okay? So, in other words, answering your question, kalau you ada proposal previously rejected and now you baiki dia and then you hantar balik, it will be considered. And even if they check similarity index to more than 30%, it will be considered. Okay? Tapi my advice is jangan ambil komen, little comments yang reviewer bagi itu sahaja. Take into account all the comments given at PTJ and RMC level juga lah. Which is hopefully all in all will become more comprehensive to improve on the proposal. Okay? Thank you.
If I may suggest as well to update on your references, because you know it has been past 1 year, kan? There must be something new in your area, and if you can update perhaps the method itself, probably there's a advancement in the method that being used in your proposal. Those are the things I think I noticed that throughout the years when somebody resubmitted the proposal, there's always the case references not updated. Secondly, the method used, there's advancement in the method, but it was not addressed or it was not perhaps not updated in the proposal resubmitted from previous cycle. Those are the things I would suggest for people to look into as well to increase your chances of getting the grant.
And proposals usually the reviewers would like to see the last 5 years in your references, updated references, the last 5 years. Yeah. And also any recent development in the area lah, which you can add on since the last time you applied.
Okay, thank you, Prof and Doctor. Okay, next we move to next question. Good morning, Prof. You mentioned that vote 21,000 is for traveling expenses other than data collection purpose. Can you please elaborate on this?
Okay, vote 21,000 is for travelling expenses. Contohnya menghadiri persidangan, yeah. And menghadiri persidangan, you can ask for persidangan di luar negara dan dalam negara, right? Yeah, when there is justification to do that. Dalam negara allowed only sekali sepanjang projek. Dalam negara you may ask once a year. Dan luar negara only from second year onwards. First year tidak akan diluluskan. Yeah. What else? Arbitrary, we take it as like for 2 years about 10,000, right? And kalau 3 years to ceiling dia about 12,000. But you can justify according to the type conference that you go. Itu for travelling ya. Untuk yuran persidangan, conference fees, you cannot guna travel vote. You guna vote 29,000. That honorary and professional fees. Okay. And then travel tu can also be used untuk macam for example mileage claim untuk field work contohnya, atau you perlu mengangkutkan peralatan atau research collection of data material. That's under travel vote kan, Prof AP Hamimah, betul kan?
Ya, betul.
Yeah, and data collection, you can collect from there. Okay, sometimes you could need to collect samples, you need to travel, that you can collect from there. That is selain daripada conference tu. But it's within the 21,000 level, but not conference fees. That's the point I mentioned just now. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, that's clear. Right. Next, from Hanis Hanum. Salam Prof, thank you for your talk. For the evidence of collaboration, are we allowed to submit letter of undertaking, LOU, instead of LOI? Because sometimes it's a bit challenging to obtain LOI from collaborators.
Letter of undertaking. Hamimah, are you familiar with that? Letter of undertaking?
Letter of undertaking. I would say I've done that previous years, and they do accept LOU as well. It's some sort of it's just a proof that you have a contact and you do have you actually have plan with that certain industrial partner. So I would say, yeah.
Okay, my own experience usually maybe lain bidang lain cara, tetapi my own experience letter of undertaking ni usually macam we want to commit a budget on something and they commit to deliver it according to the time that we specify. For example, I want to do a certain experiment, but I want to commit a budget, tetapi I don't want it to be delivered until it's ready for my experiments to have those what do you call? To have those reagents lah, for because sometimes you need some time before you're ready to run it. For example, tunggu sample collection. That's when we usually get a letter of undertaking from them. Yeah. Letter of intent is actually very simple. My own experience with the industry, letter of undertaking is very simple. It's just them, the head of the industry, writing to you as the PI, stating that they understand that you have a research project on so on and so on and so on, and they have interest in the area, and they would like you to consider, or they would like to be considered to do some collaborative work with you in future. Itu aja, very simple. Very simple. It's not gagging, not legally binding pun. So usually they're quite obliged to come up with that letter. So it's just saying that you're interested in that particular field and you are they are wanting us to consider for potential collaboration in future. Itu je. It's a letter of intent. Bukan MOA, MOU pun. Okay? Very simple.
Right. Thank you, Prof and Doctor. So I believe this is last question, tapi dah macam answering question yang previously, but it's okay. Good morning, Prof. I am Dr. Hanish. Very informative and good talk. Is part-time PhD student should be considered in FRGS? Thank you, Prof.
Hamimah, what's your...
No, they're not counted. It has to be full-time PhD student. Because I've experienced this myself with my master, and they're not counted. And I've checked with Dr. Shahadi has also informed me they're not counted if they are registered as a part-time student, be it master or PhD student. So they have to
must
be
registered as a full-time, masters or PhD student to be counted as one of the KPI required lah.
True.
Okay, maybe I can just add on, macam for example, FRGS to minimal requirement, bagi minimal requirement that they require at least kan. Dia kata 1 PhD ataupun 2 masters, right? So, let's say you have 1 part-time PhD, yang tu tak boleh kira. Tetapi you ambil 1 full-time at least, kan? Ataupun you ambil 2 master student. And then on top of that, you've got say a part-time PhD who wants to work on the project, that's fine. It's additional lah, tetapi you tak boleh kira as a KPI. Okay, and the other point that I mentioned just now, tak semestinya projek 3 tahun sahaja yang boleh PhD, because you may have a PhD student, sometimes I have a PhD student who is already registered on that project. I mean, dia dah registered as a PhD student, already working on something, you know, related to that project katalah, or another project related or something like that. Lepas tu, when you ask for a continuation of that, you probably just want to finish it up in 2 years, and then that student, you rasa dia boleh graduate in 2 years. So it's still possible to get a PhD student within 2 years, provided dia dah register beforehand and doing on something related. Okay.
Right, since there's no more questions, dalam YouTube pun tak ada. So I believe the webinar has come to its end. Before we end our today's session, I would like to ask everyone to turn on your camera or your webcam for a photo session with the speakers. Right. So Ira, are you ready? Okay, smile everyone. Our secretary ada nak capture a few screen Thumbs up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Again, on behalf of the TNCPI, Research Nexus UiTM, and also Research Management Center UiTM, I would like to thank Professor Datin Dr. Hapizah Nawawi and Associate Professor Dr. Siti Hapizah Sheikh Abdul Kadir for the beneficial sharing sessions. And also thank you everyone for gracing our webinar with your presence for today. I end my duty as the Master of Moderator with the webinar with Taufiq wa Hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you everyone.
Terima kasih Prof. Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Prof. and Hamimah.
Thank you.
Yasmin.
Tak ada jam latihan.
And the whole venue for organizing this. Thank you.